Hello, welcome to the May edition of the programme that is produced especially for you. And many thanks for your reaction to last month's programme. Judging by your letters, most of you were well pleased. Very nice to hear from you. Keep the letters coming. Now this month we're going to California to meet some of the reservation staff based in Los Angeles. We take a preview of the new London offices overlooking the city's famous Oxford Street shopping centre. And we discover what happens next following the secret ballot on board the Princess ships. But we start this month in Southampton. It's 6:15 in the morning. It's cold and it's wet. Canberra arrives on time after a 3-month world cruise. During those 3 months, passengers and crew have used an amazing quantity of supplies. 5 tons of shellfish, 76 tons of meat, 35 tons of flour and more than 1/3 of a million eggs. 1,100 bottles of champagne, 5,000 gallons of beer and 14,000 bottles of spirits, liqueurs and sherry. And just how much Alka-Seltzer was used isn't recorded. The weather hasn't deterred the families of passengers and crew from welcoming her, and there was clear evidence that she'd been to Australia. She's in her home port for just 36 hours. During that time, a number of tasks have to be completed. She'll take on tons of new stores, gallons more drink, acres of carpets will be cleaned, a whole dining room will be repainted, and essential engineering repairs will be carried out. Berth 106 at Southampton is ready to accept her, and as the final preparations are made for the lines to be brought ashore, the tugs nudge her gently alongside the quay. It's a delicate moment, be ashamed to spoil it now. And she's home. But as soon as she's alongside, the work begins. It's a mammoth task which will test the skills and patience of everyone on the ship and on shore. What sort of time awaits Terry Mitchell and his staff?
Well, a pretty hectic one, because having come back from mainline voyage, it's slightly different from coming back from a cruise. For example, you'll have probably a lot more baggage for the passengers to come off. That's cabin baggage. In addition to that, they're going to have baggage in the baggage room and baggage in the baggage hold, all of which must be removed from the ship, along with such things as empty beer drums and other stores that she's picked up en route, which are for use in the UK during the season. And all of this must be done most expeditiously so that we can start to load the ship with her stores and with all the other bits and pieces she will need before she leaves tomorrow evening on her first cruise.
Good communications are essential.
The ship will indent into, shall we say, hotel services for all their victualling stores. This is then passed to the purchasing department who procure the stores. There is then a storing program made out, and it's decided what is going to go into the ship when and where. When that program is produced, we as operations then arrange the port labour, and this is controlled by our docks operations superintendent. And it's a question of shoreside liaison, having such things as forklift trucks in the right place at the right time, foreman in the right place at the right time, stevedores in the right place at the right time. It started this morning at 7:30, and the disembarkation should be complete by about 11:30. The storing program will go through till 9 o'clock this evening, and then it will start again tomorrow morning at 8 and go right the way through, again possibly up until just before the ship sails, which is at 19:30 or 7:30 p.m. tomorrow evening.
Yeah, we've enjoyed every minute of it.
Good on you, that's what I like.
It's been right smashing. Entertainment's full of right.
Welcome to sunny Britain.
The main news this month is the reorganisation of hotel services staff on board the 5 Princess cruise ships. The proposals affect nearly 600 people, all of whom were sent individual details of the offer. The new plans will bring all hotel services staff under one employer, PSI. The National Union of Seamen was consulted about the proposals, and combined talks opened in April at a Los Angeles hotel. Representatives from all the ships joined union officials, led by Assistant General Secretary Sam McCluskey, and the talks went on for 2 days. As a result of the talks, some improvements were made to the proposals, which were then the subject of a secret ballot, giving all those affected a direct say in the decision. The staff were offered severance pay and the opportunity to apply for re-employment by PSI under new terms and conditions. Everyone affected was able to vote. Those on board voted at sea, while those on leave received a postal vote. As the votes were counted on board, so the postal votes were counted in London at the offices of ACAS. The ships telexed their results to ACAS, and the result was announced. 390 votes for acceptance, 149 votes against acceptance, a decisive vote in support of the changes. Leading the talks for the management was the chairman, Christopher Stuart Smith. His personal involvement with the discussions is being seen by many as an indication of the way the new top management is rolling up its sleeves and getting stuck in. After the result was announced, he said, "I'm pleased we are getting the support we asked for so we can press ahead with our plans." Also attending the Los Angeles meeting was the convener from the Royal Princess, Ralph Bethel. Was he happy with the way the ballot had been conducted?
Yes, I'm very happy with the way the ballot was conducted, and I feel good in myself that the way I was there and everything went as we planned.
How about the result? Are you happy with that as well?
It's very funny when you have a secret ballot. People talk to you one way and then they vote the other way. All the talk before doesn't really count. It's people got their own problems and own commitments. They talk them over between their friends or their families at home. The company made the phone available and they made the decision from there.
Were you surprised at the result?
No, not really. Not a surprise. Disappointment, but not surprise.
And how about the future? How do you see the future now?
Well, it's all full steam ahead now. I hope the people that do come and work under PSI will find that it's acceptable to them.
Are you optimistic?
Yes, very optimistic. I worked with PSI for a long time, as with the Italian crew, and they seem to come back all the time. I think it's something new, and when people get to grips with it, it's like everything else new. You've got to get to grips with it.
What would you say to those people who are perhaps a bit disappointed in the way that the ballot went and are feeling rather unhappy at the result?
Well, I know how they feel because I'm one of them. But that is democracy. That's all I can say is the people made their own decision, and that's the way it's got to be.
David Lawley, a bedroom steward representative from the Royal Princess, had this reaction to the way the ballot was conducted.
It was all done above board. I mean, say we got through the postal ballots first. We counted them, and then we got all of the ships, and we tallied them up, and everything went according to, the way it was supposed to be done. It was all fair and above board.
And how about the result? Are you happy with that?
Let's say that we were given a mandate from the ships to go for more cash, not lose what we'd been originally offered, and we did get more cash out of them. So I think the majority would say that, well, yes, it was a good result.
The P&O Group continues to move from strength to strength in two big financial deals. It's taken over Stock Conversion, a major UK-based property company, and Overseas Containers Limited, OCL, one of the most successful companies in its field. P&O already held 47% of OCL, and by acquiring the remaining 53%, it strengthens the company's presence in its traditional operating area of Australia and the Far East, and underlines its commitment to shipping. The two deals were masterminded by Group Chairman Sir Geoffrey Sterling and warmly endorsed by the press and the city. The moves are seen as an important step in strengthening the group's future. Security on board all cruise ships has been stepped up following the American bombing of Libya. Deputy Managing Director Alan Langley says strict control of gangway access and thorough checking of passengers is essential. However, the government's advice at the moment is that there is no need to alter published itineraries or shore excursions in Egypt or Jordan. A close watch is being kept on conditions in the Baltic following the nuclear disaster in Russia. No changes to itineraries are necessary at the moment, but the situation is being monitored, and should any change be required, then staff and passengers will be informed immediately. And finally, the first 1987 brochure has just been published. It covers the Canberra's World Cruise, which starts from Southampton in January. The new look brochure has a more modern design, is slimmer, less cluttered, and with a simplified price and cabin selection. P&O Cruises is on the move. Not only is the company on the road to a more modern, more streamlined and ultimately more prosperous future, but it's bringing all its London-based staff into one new custom-designed office complex in the heart of the capital's West End. The new offices have one of the city's most famous high-rise landmarks for a neighbour and are on the doorstep of the capital's most famous shopping centre. This is the lobby of 77 New Oxford Street. It's easy to get to by bus, taxi, tube or bike, and the brand new offices are virtually ready to welcome the first staff. Now through there will be reception, the computers, the switchboard, telex and easy access for the public to retail sales. Now the company has just over half of this floor, but 3 more floors upstairs. Right, well here we are on the 4th floor and there are 2 more floors just like this. Now on this floor there will be Canberra Cruises, account sales and reservations. Down there will be Princess Cruises. Upstairs on the 5th floor, Swan Hellenic, P&O Air Holidays and Flag Travel. And on the 6th floor, more Swan Hellenic offices, P&O Lines, Management Accounts and the Directorate. Actually, we invited the chairman, Christopher Stewart Smith, to try out the new offices. We brought in a desk and a chair, sat him down and asked him about the move.
It's quite a big move. It'll have the great advantage we're all under one roof in a convenient place in London. It's right over the Tottenham Court Road tube station, and it's 10 minutes from Liverpool Street and 10 minutes from Waterloo, so I think it should be good from the staff point of view.
What are the advantages going to be of having everyone together?
Oh, I think the advantages that one always has from being able to pop into the next door office and talk to people informally and get things done quickly with a minimum of travelling around. I think it is as simple as that, and we intend to have a nice style about the building, but in an informal one, open door, open plan. I think it'll be very effective and a very agreeable atmosphere to work in.
So exciting times for London-based staff. Now it's time to return to Southampton, not a moment to spare because I've got work to do. This is the Canberra's Atlantic restaurant, the one at the stern of the ship. Its main colour is a sort of dull chocolate brown. It was originally designed to create an intimate atmosphere, but with the dark carpet it feels rather more claustrophobic than cosy. Well, all that's being changed. It's being redecorated in just one day. In fact, over the other side, work has already begun.
We've already washed this part of the restaurant down and we're painting. By 2 o'clock we hope to be through this particular section. We're then moving across the restaurant gradually. We're trying to give the restaurant back to the hotel manager in the morning by, shall we say, 8 o'clock. We're going to work all night, 24 hours, this restaurant to paint. As you can see, all the way around there are brown colours, and they're pretty drab. Therefore, we're putting on new colours to lighten the restaurant generally. The colour on the ceiling, the deckhead, is apple white. The walls are being done with a colour called fragrance, which is completely obliterating the brown. But to obliterate this brown, we're having to do the walls 3 times. The problem is obviously the furniture. It's in our way, it's fixed to the floor, so we can't move it. And, you know, we've had to put the chairs on top of the tables. Again, it's easy that way because we can cover table and chairs in one go. Now you can see we use new polythene to do this. And that way it stops any paint whatsoever getting on the upholstery or whatever.
Well, those lads have really got a day and a night ahead of them. We'll be returning to the CLC painters and to the Atlantic dining room a little later on. Right now, it's time to cross the pond.
Temperature in Hollywood is at 51 degrees. Lots of rain on the way to the Southland tonight, and overnight lows are not expected.
Los Angeles, California, home of Disneyland, Universal Studios and Princess Cruises. Located in Century City, 20th Century Fox's former backlot, and overlooking the Avenue of the Stars, it's from here that the vital American sales operation is run.
And now let's see what's coming up on the freeways from Tammy Trujillo in Metro Traffic.
Beach drivers on the westbound Foothill Freeway coming up on a lot of heavy traffic right now starting around Lake. It's all due to a multi-vehicle collision farther along at the Glendale Junction.
Central to that operation is reservations, the important land-based link between ships and travel agents.
We've got the general reservations area at this end, which takes calls from travel agencies for small groups of people, 2, 4, 6, of that type. Then we have the group desk, which works with agencies who have signed up a contract for groups of 10 or larger. Based on the size of the group, they get significant per-person discounts.
This is your desk. This is Michelle. Okay, how may I help you with that? Do you have your voyage number and your group number? Uh-huh. Let me pull that up for you.
The third area of the reservations office is our dispatcher area, and they work the last 3 weeks prior to the sailing, firming up the passenger manifest and keeping in contact with the ship on any last-minute changes in names and cabins and that type of thing.
In most cases, we take over a sailing about 2 weeks in advance, sometimes 3 if we're lucky. There's a lot of last-minute bookings on our ships in particular. That's why we have the finalizers that handle it within 2 weeks of the sailing. Also, all the upgrading, because we have a tendency of over-guaranteeing in certain categories, so that's our responsibility to shuffle people up to higher categories so we can berth the guarantees. And then also some oddball tickets that haven't been triggered and that type of thing, which we have to take care of.
When you say upgrading, what does that mean? Does that mean persuading people to pay more for better cabins?
No, basically our job is when they have oversold in a lower category, to accommodate that oversell situation, we have to move people out of those accommodations because we upgrade according to when passengers have booked. The longer you've been booked with us, the better upgrades you'll probably receive from us if possible. So what we do, let's say a K category, which is the minimum, we'll upgrade those maybe to G or the F category. Then we'll take the people that do not have cabin numbers and put them into those rooms that we vacated.
So that's a complimentary improvement.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed.
Must go down well.
Very well, indeed.
Okay, so they're going to have an air credit on that of $100. Did they want the cancellation waiver on their file, Pat? Okay.
It's real busy, particularly January through March is our peak period where we can be offered up to 2,800 calls a day. Later in the week or through the rest of the year, it might be 1,900, 2,000 calls a day.
Now, you're solely dependent not only on the computer, but on the telephone, aren't you?
Absolutely. That's the lifeline to the company, and we have no contact with the outside world without a very sophisticated phone system. We have a computer screen that tells us at any given minute how many calls are waiting to get through, how long they're waiting, how long each call is taking to handle, and that type of thing.
And do alarm bells ring when you've got lots of calls?
Well, we've got a light system that blinks when we're holding more than 3 to grab our attention. It's a solid light with less than 3 calls, and it doesn't blink at all with no calls holding.
And of course, the risk is that if there are lots of calls holding, then that's lost business.
Absolutely. Every call is worth potential revenue to us.
The reservation staff handle more than 250,000 calls every year, and so it's not surprising that occasionally they receive the odd unusual request.
I think the most peculiar request I think I had at one time, the passengers were booked on a guarantee basis, which means they don't have a cabin assignment until the dispatcher takes over. So I put them in a real nice accommodation. Well, the agent had called, and she said, these numbers won't do. I said, I don't quite understand. And she said, they're into numerology, and these numbers are not particularly lucky for them. So I said, well, what are? And she said, well, I'm not too sure, but you have to come up with an accurate combination so they will have a very positive time on the ship. So I ended up having to try to find a particular number that suited this woman. That was a bit peculiar.
This man is into numerology too. He's obsessed with figures. His task is to make sure Princess Cruises makes a profit. What part does reservations play in that?
Oh, it's critical. That's the nerve center of our operation. We deal mainly through travel agents, and these travel agents call right into the Los Angeles office from all over the country to make their bookings. And close contact with the sales reservations people is very important to keep them abreast of our latest programs and marketing offers out to the country, basically. At the end of the day, it's the bottom line, and that's what we're here for. If we meet our profit objectives, we're able to reinvest in new ships, expand, and of course there'll be more jobs and opportunity for our employees.
Art Rodney there. Now, we're very keen to report what's happening throughout the company on ships and in offices around the world. But it is, I'm afraid, going to take us some time before we can visit every ship and shore base. So we would like your help. If something happens on your ship or in your office which you think would be interesting or amusing to show others, then please let's have a picture. Now, you don't need one of these to take it. You'd never get it on your shoulder anyway. But you might have one of these. This is a home video, and this would do the job very nicely. Now, if you don't have a video to hand, good quality colour prints would be just as welcome, ideally 6x8, that sort of size, or bigger if you prefer, and landscape format, that's very important, that's this way round. If they're the other way round, they don't fit the television screen unless you turn the TV on its side, and we don't want to mess around like that. Make sure that the prints have got a caption with full names and titles, the date and the event, and when you send them in, drop me a note telling me some of the background to what's happening. Now, what sort of pictures do we want? Well, I suppose all kinds of things. Everything from visits by celebrities to intership football matches. I dare say only the winning side will be sending them in, but never mind. If it's important to you, it's important to us. So let's have the pictures. If you know someone with a camera, nag them to put your ship or office on the telly. Here's the address. Tailor-Made Films, 3 Chilworth House, Chilworth Mews, London W2, 3RG, England. Now, as I'm sure you do know, Canberra celebrates her 25th birthday this year, and to mark the occasion, this reprint of the Times supplement is being produced. It marked the launch of the ship in March 1960, and there's some absolutely fascinating stuff in it. Now, under its new management team, headed by Brian MacDonald, she looks set for another 25 years. Right now, though, Canberra's into the second day of her turnaround in Southampton.
We started storing at 8 o'clock yesterday morning. We store through 3 points, which is the maximum we can store on this ship, and we stored from 8 o'clock yesterday morning until 9 o'clock last night, and again from 8 o'clock this morning until 7 o'clock departure. As the title it says, dry stores. All your dry stores are in here. Your sugar, tinned fruits, etc., flour, etc., are all in here. And we will have taken, during the course of the 2 days in here, we would have put in about 40-odd tons. We also have freezer stores. They're in the chambers below here, and we will have taken in about 44 tons of freezer stores during our stay. Obviously, when the opportunity arises, we do purchase local produce because the passengers do like to see something local coming into the ship and then appearing on the menu.
This is part of the old baggage conveyor. It's 25 years old. Good age for a baggage conveyor, but now it's time to install a new one. Bit by bit, the old unit is cut away. Here, an old motor is being removed, and the new conveyor will be installed on top of the old frame. It's work which will be completed at sea. They've done well in the Atlantic dining room.
Well, the job went very well. Everything went according to plan. I told you last night, the secret was planning, and the right men, of course. And it worked out exactly as we thought. The job was completed in 24 hours, and we'd really been given about 30 hours to do the job. It's come out very well. You know, the colours here were very drab. You can see how light and airy it is now.
This is a part of the engine room, and in the background there is the new oily water separator. It was manhandled through that gap. It's not been an easy time for Michael Ramsey.
Well, about 11 o'clock last night, we lost the fuel pressure, and consequently we lost steam. Fortunately, the watches reacted very quickly, and they managed to save the job, but it took some time to get things straightened out.
What's the implication of losing the fuel pressure? What would have happened?
Well, we lost steam pressure, and then we'd have lost the steam to the generators, which provide the electrical power for the ship and the services.
So would the ship have been plunged into darkness?
For a fraction of a second, until the emergency generator cut in to supply emergency services.
So it was the quick reaction on the part of the watch that actually saved potentially quite a serious problem?
Yes. This is the idea of having watchkeepers, so they can react to the unexpected.
Well, one disaster averted, but he's had more than his fair share of problems on this turnaround.
Oh yes, I mean, this is one in question here with the separator. You know, it's slightly larger diameter than we were led to believe. Consequently, we had to start pulling the ship apart. The complete valve chest, as you can see, has been removed. They're just in the process of reassembling it.
He had problems with the new baggage conveyor too.
Yes, that was delivered to the wrong place.
Has that put you back at all?
Oh yes, we lost a day's work on it.
And what's the implications of that for you?
Again, it means much more work for the staff once we sail.
And she sails in less than an hour now. The engines are being got ready, nearly all the fuel is on board, the passengers are on board, and so are the stores.
Well, we've had our problems most certainly this particular turnaround. As I said yesterday, the difference between a line voyage return and an ordinary cruise turnaround is somewhat different. We've had mechanical problems with the ship's gear and getting the baggage off yesterday morning, and we had a delayed disembarkation. We had a train failure, which meant the boat train was over an hour late getting up to Waterloo, so we had some rather irate passengers blaming P&O for British Rail's inefficiency again. And there have been other things today as well which haven't gone too good. The like of which that we've got a very high wind today and the ship's been ranging off the quay. The tide was falling at the same time. We've had gangways afloat so the passengers couldn't use it. We've had some of the storing equipment not being able to function properly because, again, the ship's ranged off the quay, it wouldn't reach. And we've had one or two other mechanical problems, but glad to say that we've overcome them. One of the problems we've had today is a very slow embarkation. This has come about because of the necessity nowadays for much more stringent security regulations. And in taking that into account, we found that the passengers are moving very slowly through the embarkation controls. We've had to hold the train up outside the docks for about 20 minutes whilst we progress those passengers that we had in hand. And I've been in the game now for nearly 30 years. And you can say that each embarkation or disembarkation has its own peculiarities. And sometimes we get a good one, and when we do, we're very, very thankful. Sometimes we get a bad one. I think this has been a pretty bad one. And you feel like saying, right, now's the time to go and have a beer.
Poor fella, he's earned the lot, hasn't he? High winds, late trains, he deserves that beer, and so do his lads. Now, before we end, it's fascinating fact time. Ivan German, the navigator on board Canberra, has been playing with his calculator. How he finds the time, we don't know, but playing with his calculator he has been. Now, he tells me that Canberra does, wait for it, 39 feet and 3 inches to the gallon. And he doesn't stop there, he goes on. If all the fuel used by the ship during the world cruise were used by an average family car, you could drive to the moon and back 334 times. Or, says Ivan, and he doesn't give up easily, if you fancy a warmer climate, you could go on a single journey to the sun and back as far as Mars and still have some left over in the tank. Now, if there's anyone else out there with a calculation, some time on their hands, let's hear from you. It's almost time to go. Next month, we'll be on board the Sun Princess in the Caribbean, when, amongst other things, we'll discover how good they are at making cocktails with their entry into the Cocktail Challenge. And rumour reaches my ears that they are already practising. So don't miss that. It's going to be great fun. Don't forget, we also want your colour pictures of interesting and amusing events. So whether you're office-based in Hong Kong, Seattle or Southampton, or afloat in the Atlantic, Caribbean or Pacific, please, we would like to hear from you. And if you want to send a copy of this video to family or friends, you will find order forms on all ships and in all offices. If you've got any problems, please drop me a line. It's the same address as earlier on. Now, don't spool back yet, otherwise you'll miss Canberra racing against the clock to get everything stowed and all work finished to catch the tide out of Southampton and to the Caribbean. Until next month, take care. Good cruising.